Welcome to the treasure trove of folk tales, a magical collection of stories that have inspired generations. Embark on a mythical journey with heroes, fairies, and enchanting creatures, opening the door to a world of imagination and emotion.
The story of the Jewish physician. I was originally a Jew living in Mosul. When my father died, I inherited a huge fortune, including ancient books, some strange medicine bottles, and many manuscripts in Syriac, Hebrew, and Persian. He had been a famous physician, treating patients with herbs, charms, and even prayers. I, still full of doubts, wandered to learn in strange lands from Arabia to India. I learned not only medicine, but also how to live and survive. One day, I arrived in Baghdad, wearing an old robe and a faded hat. I wandered the streets looking for a place to practice, but the place was full of healers, magicians, sorcerers, and even swindlers. Everyone had their own family secret, and divine medicine. In that jostling scene, I decided to choose a different path. I would only treat the nobles, and only treat them with secret, ancient Jewish methods, which no one had ever heard of. This aroused my curiosity, and soon I was invited to the mansion of a high-ranking official whose wife was suffering from a strange sleepwalking disease. The woman was very charming, but her eyes were dull. Her mouth was always mumbling nonsense. Every night, her feet walking around the rooms as if controlled by someone. Many healers had come, then been chased away in resentment. I, with my thoughtful style and mysterious appearance, just stood observing her for one night and said, "This is a cursed disease, caused by a lost soul, which can only be cured by an ancient ritual of the desert Jews, where people talk to restless souls." I set out 7 sticks of incense, a black cat, an ancient bronze mirror, and a bowl of water taken from the well in the palace itself, all just to create mystery. But strangely enough, after 3 nights, she woke up completely, and people praised me as a miracle. Not long after, the rumor spread to the royal palace. And then one day, the guards led me to the king. The king was suffering from a strange illness. His right hand suddenly lost feeling. He could not hold a sword. All the best doctors in Baghdad were helpless. I was invited, and although I was trembling with fear, I still had to pretend to be calm. I looked at his hand, pretended to think deeply, and said, "This is not a physical illness, but a spiritual illness. It can only be cured by an ancient ritual, praying for the moon to return to the spirit, a ritual that can only be performed at the exact hour when the moon sets its shadow on the east gate, where the spirits of ancestors gather." He asked, "What if I don't get better?" I bowed my head. "If I don't get better, I will die." So the ritual took place in the middle of the night, with incense, chanting, and incantations, which I made up by combining Syriac and ancient Hebrew. In the climax, I brandished my whip, the symbol of the ritual, shouting, "O spirit of darkness, leave the king's hand. Make way for the light of justice." And coincidentally, the king's hand moved again, and the whole palace erupted. I was greatly rewarded with 1,000 gold coins, a precious horse, brocade robes, and a position as a royal physician. My life changed from then on, but from here, my fate was drawn into the vortex of power, lies, and real magic. One day, the queen fell ill. Although her body was healthy, she could not sleep peacefully. In her dreams, she screamed strange names. Yazid, Ibn Kalish, the Western Gate. Even the king was frightened. I, now used to pretending, began the ritual of visiting the sick again. But this time, I felt a real chill. Every night, when I stood next to her, I felt a shadow pass behind me. Cold wind, whispers, mirrors reflecting dark shadows. I began to believe something was not a joke anymore. I followed the names she mentioned in her dreams. It turned out that Yazid was a sorcerer who had been executed for treason. But who was Ibn Kalish? I went to the palace library, searched through dozens of old parchments, and discovered Ibn Khallish was a notorious sorcerer, exiled, associated with an ancient forbidden book, Kitmir al-Zuliamat, the soul of darkness. One night, out of sheer curiosity, I snuck into the forbidden basement. There, I found a chest, locked with silver chains. Inside was that book. Every page was painted in blood, in ancient symbols, which only someone who had studied in Samarkand like me could read. That book talked about how to communicate with the souls of the dead and call them back to life, but only in the bodies of sleeping people. A curse, a ritual once secretly performed by the queen on her dead lover. It turned out that every night she was possessed by the soul of her lover. He refused to accept that he was dead, so he wanted to reside in her body, but she still had a strong ego, so she resisted and was in pain. I decided to perform the exorcism ritual, this time for real. During the ritual, when I sprinkled holy salt on her body, the shadow in the mirror screamed and shattered. The wind whirled in the middle of the room. The lamp went out. I thought I was dead, but when I woke up, she was sleeping peacefully like a child, and never mentioned that name again. The king thought I was a saint, but I knew I was just someone who had almost touched hell. After that, I no longer wanted to stay in the palace. I pretended to be sick, then asked to retire to my hometown to retire. But the night before I left, I received a letter written in red ink. Whoever reads Kitmir al-Zuliamat, the spirit of darkness, will never be spared. The ghost will follow you until the end of your life. I fled in the night, crossed the desert, crossed the Tigris River, and hid in an old monastery. But all the way, I kept hearing strange calls. The mirror did not reflect my face, and my shadow went in the opposite direction. I knew I had touched something that no one should touch. From then on, I lived in seclusion, changed my name, and told my story, hoping to free myself. When the Jewish physician finished his story, his face was filled with sadness, but full of contemplation. The king was still nervous, both surprised and admiring what he had experienced. At that moment, Scheherazade smiled gracefully and said softly, "Your Majesty, if you think that the fate of the Jewish physician is thrilling, then please let me continue telling you about the sixth brother of the barber, a man with an ironic fate, who once fell into the hands of robbers, was cheated of both love and money, and had to pretend to be crazy to escape. If you hear that story, it will surely make your Majesty laugh out loud and be choked with emotion at the world's many complications and ephemeralities."
The tale has come to an end, yet the magic of these legends lives on in your heart. Keep dreaming and spreading the wonder.